So it was a big undertaking. It was a big project to take on, and we learned a lot in that first deal. Though the one key piece that I don't want to say we overlooked, we did take it very seriously, but it was just it turned out unfortunately, was the property management that we brought on for this deal.
Yep.
Welcome to the Threefold Real Estate Investing Podcast. This is the podcast where you'll not only learn how you can achieve massive success in multifamily real estate investing, but also how you can simultaneously pursue great relationships with your family and a better walk with God. You can achieve financial freedom through real estate investing without sacrificing the relationships that mean the most to you. Now, here's your host, Lee Yoder.
Welcome back, Threefold listeners. I hope you're having a great week. As starting to feel some summer here in Ohio. I've had some beautiful weather. We've got a great guest for you today. A friend of mine, Mitch Renda, a local guy here that's doing some great things in multifamily. He and I run a meetup together. We'll probably talk about that more a little bit later, but I'll keep it focused on Mitch for now. He runs a group called 1027. It's a Midwest-based real estate private equity group. They're investors and operators in the multifamily space. They do heavy value-add projects across markets like Cincinnati, Columbus, and Dayton. They invest for impact. Their mission is to transform properties and the communities in which they're located. Their goal is to build lasting wealth for their investors along the way. And their vision is to become one of the most impactful real estate organizations by staying true to their core values and convictions. Love all that. Sounds similar to what we're trying to do here at Threefold. So, yeah, really excited to get into all this conversation. Mitch, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, man. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So, Mitch, let's jump in. Take us back to when you first got real interested in real estate. What were you doing, and then what got you interested in real estate investing?
Yeah, so I'm in business with my brother. Kevin and we're the partners of 1027 Group. And so we come from the traditional corporate America W-2 path. I was in the world of finance with companies like GE and Honeywell. My brother, Kevin, was in corporate audit for one of the big four firms in Chicago. And really, we never had an intention to invest in real estate as a full-time gig. It really just kind of popped up as, hey, let's try this out and see how it works. We weren't reading all the books on real estate investing. We weren't listening to podcasts. We kind of jumped into our first deal, which was a duplex here in Cincinnati, without really knowing what we were doing.
So you weren't reading books and podcasts. Who tipped you off to the idea in the first place?
It's just something we knew of. We just knew of real estate we had it in our minds. This was a good way to make passive income. We had that passive idea of real estate in our minds. And so, like I said, it wasn't buying our first duplex wasn't like we were starting the journey of then one day leaving our W-2s and going to build this portfolio. But we bought the duplex, pulled together our money between Kevin and I. We bought this duplex, kind of did the BRRRR method without really knowing what the BRRRR method was. And it was a successful project. And then we decided to, because it was a successful project, do it again on another. This one was a very distressed fourplex, which is a whole story in and of itself.
Sure.
But this second project was really what got us hooked to it, because one, this got us introduced to more of the entrepreneurial side of real estate. Mm-hmm. It's not a passive investing game. If you're guys like us who are operating the actual assets, this is very much hands-on, very active, a very active way of investing. And so this introduced us to the entrepreneurial side of real estate, which we love. And it also introduced us to what is now like our motto or our thesis of investing for impact, because we got to see with this one fourplex property here in Cincinnati being again distressed and unlivable in some cases on a nice street here in Cincinnati, and we kind of transformed that property by the help of a lot of people and the grace of God that we got that one through. But we did it, and it was we felt the impact that it made in the community and the neighbors and everything, and that's what really got us hooked. And then after doing that a few times, we were like, we need to figure out a way to get into this. And BRRRRs on the smaller scale would just take a long time for us to be full-time, to get to a position where we can leave our W-2s. So that's when we started. Then we started reading books and listening to podcasts on syndications and using other people's, outside capital. And that's what led us into doing it full-time.
Well, Mitch, I think you guys started the right way, because real estate in general takes a long time. to really build wealth. I think it's one of the things that's like, it's more of a sure thing. I think it's like, it's hard to mess up. And like, if you give it time, you're going to succeed. But it does take time. It's rare that you can just hit these home runs that a lot of people have been hitting the past few years, but it's been a unique time in the market cycle. But so I think that's a benefit to you guys, that you have no, dreams or plans of hitting it big and quitting your job. Now that's what you guys have done. We'll get more into that, but you didn't start that way. So I think you had the right mindset. When you say the duplex was successful, I mean, I'm guessing basically with the BRRRR, the buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat, you were able to pretty much pull your money back out and so get into that 4-unit with the same money that you had bought the duplex with.
Yeah, the duplex was essentially, it was a light BRRRR, and it basically broke even. It was a broke even refi. So we pulled all that out, didn't necessarily profit, but pulled it out.
But now you're into it with nothing, and you get to recycle that money and do it again.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's awesome. No, that's a huge win. And so what's interesting to me about the quad that you guys bought is, like you said, I mean, anytime you're buying value out, especially, I mean, I think anytime you're buying it yourself, and especially, of course, if you're managing yourself, like it's very active. And what happens to a lot of people, Mitch, is they get in and they'll do your path in the duplex, and it's like, well, that was pretty easy. It's a nice little BRRRR and it's easy. And then you get the next one is the quad, with a lot more hands-on, a lot of distress. And most people go, yeah, I don't want to do this.
Right.
And so then they find syndications because they want to invest passively. And as long as you're the one buying the property and the buck stops with you and you're answering the calls, even if someone else has managed it, someone else is doing the renovations, you're still very active. So a lot of people get into that, don't like it. They're like, okay, I see that real estate's awesome. I don't want to do it full time. This is not what I enjoy doing. So I'll get into syndications as a passive investor. You guys had the opposite feeling, and it was like, oh my gosh, we love this. This is what we actually want to do. And that's when you start turning the gears, like, man, can we do more of this? Could we do this full time? So yeah, interesting. Love that story. The 4-unit, I think what you were starting to say was like, you guys put a ton into it, and you were actually enjoying that. And then I think seeing the fruits of that is really what got you guys hooked, where you said, man, we made an impact here in this community with at least, 4 families that are now, went from this place wasn't livable to now they've got a really nice place to live in a nice neighborhood. And you guys did that. And it sounds like that was kind of the trigger for you guys to really become passionate about real estate investing.
It was. And don't get me wrong, there were major headaches along the way.
Sure.
And there always are. And we went over budget. It didn't go the way that we exactly planned. We were advised not to buy it from people that we kind of trust, contractors and other people who invest in real estate, before we ever bought it, when we were in the due diligence period. But we were like, screw it. We're going to figure this out. We're going to do it anyway, because this wasn't that long ago. This was in the middle of COVID. So there was really slow activity going on at this time. And we were like, we're eager. We're hungry. We want to do it. Neighbors started to come up to us, because one piece I left out was there was the 1 unit that was occupied was a drug dealer and his 2 Rottweilers that lived in the back. Wow. And so there was, just sketchy folks coming up all the time. It did not fit on this street of a bunch of, kids and young families. And so we had plenty of people come up to us after the fact, after we finished the project, and they're like, thank God you guys did something with this. We've been praying and waiting. There's a pastor who lived right next door to this property, and he would come out and be like, I've been praying for somebody to do something with this property for so long. Oh, cool. And so those types of stories, they're like, you can't, you'll deal with the headaches all day long if this is the end result. Not to say every project's going to be perfect and great like that one, but it's what draws us into it. Yeah,
you can see why you guys got hooked. So I know you do a few more little ones, and then you guys jumped up. So obviously started reading the book, started listening to the podcast, and decided you want to do bigger deals. And you guys got a pretty big one up in Dayton, pretty soon in your journey. Tell us why you went after something, much bigger, why you decided to syndicate, and what you liked about this property. Yeah,
absolutely. So that was the case. We jumped from a bunch of small multifamilies here in Cincinnati to just what we thought was a massive one in Dayton at the time.
It is. Yeah.
And the reason being was because we decided we were leaving our W-2 jobs before we ever had any deals lined up. We just quit and took the sink or swim approach.
Yeah.
This was at the end of 2021 or the beginning of 2022 is when we really left our jobs cold turkey, cut off from that salary. And then we ended up closing on our first deal in, I think, June of 2022. So that was a 6-month period. We were searching for deals. We finally found this one in Dayton. Another one that a lot of people were kind of avoiding. It was an older property. There was definitely some deferred maintenance. It was mom and pop run. So it was a big undertaking. You know, it was a big project to take on, and we learned a lot in that first deal, though. And I think the number one thing that we learned, we learned the whole process from finding the deal all the way through the due diligence to the legal. We had a great partner who kind of coached us and mentored us throughout this process, and how to work with the lenders and everything. And then once you close, how to run an asset management. And that was the part that we kind of knew how to do already, because we had smaller properties that we had been managing ourselves and asset managing ourselves. But the one key piece, because we were doing the property management on our own with our smaller properties, the one key piece that I don't want to say we overlooked, we did take it very seriously, but it was just it turned out unfortunately, was the property management that we brought on for this deal. Essentially, long story short, bit off more than they could chew. They had a good track record, great team, great owner of that business. Just didn't work out because it was in a new market, and that's like the number one thing we realized. If you're seeking out a property management, third-party property management company, are they already in your market? That's like the number one question you should be asking is, are they already in your market? And then you go look at those properties that they're currently managing in your market and in your sub-market and see how those are performing.
So then you're able to say they're already doing exactly what we want them to do on our property.
Exactly.
Same area, same type property.
Yes.
Same everything. Yep.
Which moving forward, that's now the strategy we take. And but we went through, we really didn't realize the damage that was being done at our property via the neglect and incompetence of the manager until maybe 4 months in, because it was mom and pop run. So we went a few months with them telling us like, hey, we need to organize things. It's they're using file cabinets.
Because you were expecting a couple tough months. So when it's a few tough months, you're like, yeah, this is what we expected.
Exactly. So we really didn't get to see, true financials and rent rolls and stuff that were cleaned up and real until maybe 3 or 4 months into the project. And by that time, they had already dug a really big hole for us. And there was some deceiving and lying going on too, that was to keep us from asking a lot of questions and digging in. But ultimately, 5 months in, we made the decision, we gotta pivot. We gotta get rid of this property manager, and we gotta bring in the one who's in the market, who's having a successful time with the properties surrounding our property in Dayton. And that's what we did. And so we're thankful for that manager that came in after the fact. They've dug us out of that hole that we were in, which dropped to as low as like 68% occupied.
Wow.
In the colder months in Dayton, Ohio, not the place you want to be. No. And so they brought us up. We're now north of 90 again, it's where we need to be. And so that we've learned the number one thing that we stick to now is property management. That decision, who you hire for third-party property management, will make or break your deal. Sure. Make a bad deal good, make a great deal very bad. And so that's the tough lesson we learned, but we learned it quick, thankfully. And so we've now built a relationship with another third property firm that we will continue to grow and scale with for the foreseeable future.
Nice. Mitch, a couple questions. So why did you guys decide to go with the property management company you started with? Was there some experience there with the partner? And then, man, actually, I mean, kudos to you guys, because 5 months is actually pretty quick. I mean, some people would let it drag on for a year and a half, and then finally say, oh my goodness, we got to get out. I mean, people say hire slow and fire fast. And I think that's a good thing. I mean, and really 5 months is firing very fast. And it sounds like obviously you guys really made the right decision there. Was everybody on board with that? So, what was the team's idea? Because I know you guys, you have a couple partners, one being your brother. What was the team's reasoning for picking the first property manager? And then was everybody on board to leave them very quickly, within 5 months and go to the new one?
Yeah, I think you asked the first question, why, what made us pick that property manager? And it was because this property manager managed the entire portfolio of our partners, which was a significant size portfolio.
But just in a different market.
Yes, several hundred units in a completely different market, different state as well. And so there's different rules, different laws. There's all sorts of things you need to pick up on when you're switching from one state to another, and even from one market to another, even if it's within the same state. There's a big learning curve there. But we trusted the fact that, our partner's portfolio is doing pretty well. There's no issues there. He doesn't see any issues with this property management. So the reason why we brought in an experienced partner to begin with was to lean on their expertise and lean on their years of experience. So we went with that. So that was the reason we went with that property manager. And when it came time about, 5 months in, I think about 4 months in, we started having the conversations. Hey, we're now seeing what's going on pretty clearly. We need to do something about it. And then what we did, and this was our partner's idea, let's set targets, weekly targets for our PM on leasing and getting new leases.
Love that. Yeah.
And so that's what we did. And he didn't hit 1 week of those targets. And so we went on with that for another month, which we thought was way too long. And then eventually made that decision in November to fire. And then in December they actually left the property, and then the new property management came in and took over.
Yeah.
So everybody was on board. How quickly we did it was where there was a little bit of a difference, but either way, like you said, at 5.5 months is still relatively quick.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But ultimately we brought the manager in who we were planning on bringing in the beginning. When we toured this property way back when, we had toured it with the PM that we now use, because they kind of dominate this submarket of Dayton, in a way.
Yeah.
And so we ended up full circle. Now we're back with that property manager, and it was a great decision.
So it sounds like, though, Mitch, having an experienced partner that's kind of a mentor and brings the experience, brings the relationships. Overall, that's been was a good decision for you guys, and that's been extremely helpful. Correct? Maybe talk a little bit more about that. It sounds like in this one instance, you would have been better off saying, actually, I know you have the experience, you have the relationships, but since it's in a different market, we need to stay local. So you learned that actually staying local and partnering with somebody, with a property management company that has the experience and has the relationships in that market, that would have trumped, your mentors' relationships and experience. But in other cases, it sounds like that's been a really good thing for you guys to have that mentor. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. We're a huge advocate of if you're breaking into this industry in larger scale multifamily syndications, there's so much that goes into it, so much that we had no idea was part of it that you need to get figured out. I mean, the whole legal side, we've never had to do that on our smaller properties. That the subscription docs and the PPMs and setting up all the different LLCs, because you have multiple different LLCs for each of these large properties. And so there's all these things that need to get done before purchasing a 100-unit or whatever property with 15, 20, 25 different investors. So bringing in a partner who had been doing this for, I don't know, maybe whatever, 5 or 6 years, whatever it was a blessing. And it was a blessing that he even was interested in doing it with us, guys who had very little experience on these larger scale types of projects. And so I will tell people, though, if anyone's asking or interested in breaking into this industry full time, I will always say seek out partnerships, because one, you need to, unless you're, in most cases, you need a healthy balance sheet to get the right debt in place, to get debt that makes sense in place, and you need the capital raising strength in order to take down these deals. So unless you maybe have a lot of family money, or you yourself sold a business and you have a bunch of money or something like that, you need those types of people who can go out to the market and raise that capital and also find the right debt. That's where our partner on the Dayton deal and the partner we've been with for the last 3 deals we've done, that's the strengths they bring to the table that we are building up. Because like you said, this is a long-term game, and you don't build your investor network in a couple months, and you don't build your balance sheet in a couple months. Like, these things take years to build. And so if you want to go large scale and you want the larger properties and to scale up your portfolio as fast, as smart, but as fast as you can, you need partners who have those kind of strengths.
So when you guys realized things weren't going well, and again, I want to highlight, it wasn't like you guys just found it out. You saw from the beginning things weren't going well. So it's not like you guys just missed it. But again, this was a heavy value add. This was mom and pop. So you expect this when you're a value add apartment investor. You expect that. So it was not going well as far as like occupancy, but you guys expected that. But then it drug on when you guys realized, okay, this is dragging on. Now it seems like this is a property management issue. It sounds like one of the best things that you guys did was you implemented like weekly targets for your property management company. And that showed you pretty quickly that they were not doing a good job and that you need to move on from them. So it sounds like maybe that's something that you guys learned. I'm interested if you guys kept that approach when you brought in the new property management company. Hey, let's go ahead and right away start doing some weekly targets and tracking them. Is that something you kept? And then are there some other things where you guys have just developed a different rhythm to tracking and phone calls to make sure, hey, week to week, and that leads month to month. We really know what's going on and whether not just the property is performing, because there's so many factors, but is the property management company performing? Did you keep that going with the new property management company? What are some other things maybe that you guys have learned and now institute to make sure that you're, really on top of it and knowing that the property management company is performing well?
Yeah, 100%. We've now built rhythms, and they're weekly rhythms, and you have even more communication than just once a week with our property managers now. Before, I think we were doing bi-weekly, and every now and again they get canceled because the property manager is busy and stuff. So since then, since we've kind of turned this new leaf with the new property manager, and we're now in tune with, and we've built out our own asset management processes in the background. And that's the most important piece of any deal, in my opinion, is if you can get it closed. I mean, you have asset management. You can't have good you can't have good management in general, good property management, without good asset management on top of that.
Right. Yeah.
Because there's still different levels other than leasing and maintenance requests and all that stuff that you need to keep an eye on. So yes, now we do weekly rhythms, weekly meetings. We set targets, especially for that Dayton property. We were setting targets for getting that occupancy from 68% or 69% all the way up to 90%, where it is today. And so we have a rhythm on all these calls, and what we'll touch on in every call. You hit on leasing, you hit on traffic, how are tours going, what's the conversion from tour, or what's the conversion from phone call or click on through your online marketing.
The initial interest,
conversion to tour, conversion to signing a lease.
Yeah.
So you go through all those metrics, you go through your financials, your delinquency, everything, the whole spectrum, all the CapEx going on, because with these projects you constantly have CapEx going on. So we do that on a weekly basis, and some property managers are completely okay with that. Some look at it as a little bit of an annoyance, but we've learned the pains of not doing that and not keeping up with it because you just trust your property management a little bit too much. And so we built that into our processes now. And not only do we just take the reporting of the property management, but we have our own reporting. We have our own models to keep up with how things are going at the property and what KPIs we're tracking and all that.
Yeah. Really good stuff. Mitch, the other thing I'm interested in, what's it been like partnering with your brother? So your brother's he's your main partner. You brought in another partner on this deal, but how's that been working with your brother, Kevin?
Yeah, it's interesting because we always get this question, and everybody expects us to talk about it, because everybody expects when you work with family, there's always this rift, there's always this friction. And don't get me wrong, Kevin and I will butt heads for sure. I think that's the beauty of it, though, is the way that we think is a little bit differently. Like I said, he comes from he's an accountant. I mean, he's a CPA right now, so he's very detailed. He's more risk averse. Whereas I'm the one who's like, I'm ready to take on all the projects. If you get it at the right price, let's just do it. So it's kind of me throwing the ideas and the vision at the wall, and he's the wall, and then seeing what sticks. He'll poke holes in my ideas all day long, and we'll butt heads. And even on daily decision making, if we have a disagreement, we'll have a little debate about it. But we understand that the longer you don't make a decision, that's more time, that's more money. So we've gotten to a point now where we can have a disagreement, but we can also make a decision in the next 15 minutes after we both make our points. Whoever makes the better points, you go with that decision. So ultimately, I think the dynamic and the strengths and the way that we think is, we are brothers and we're very similar in terms of our values and what we enjoy doing. But the way that we think is pretty different, actually. And so it makes for a good, definitely friction, but also a good productive partnership. And the way I also look at it when I'm in business with my brother, now there's just no way out. Now we're in it. Now we're in it for the long run. And it's there's never going to be a situation that comes up where we're like, how can I get out of this partnership? Because you can't, because we're brothers. And that's going to be a weird situation if we want to part ways, yet we're still brothers. So we look at it as now we're in it for the long term. We're committed to 1027 as essentially a family business now.
Hey, Threefold listeners, just want to take a quick second here to promote our sponsor, a company that I'm a big fan of, done a lot of business. I'm a very happy customer of Prominent Title Agency. They are a full-service title and escrow company licensed in Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, Tennessee, Michigan, and Florida. They handle commercial transactions of all types and sizes, including multifamily, retail, industrial, hotels, medical buildings, restaurants, gas stations, golf courses. They are very experienced and efficient in handling large portfolios, including multiple properties, and or multi-states, as well as entity transfers in Ohio. My guy over there is Rob Calabrese. He is the Division Director for Prominent Title Agency's Commercial Real Estate Division. Being a licensed attorney and title agent in Ohio and Kentucky, Rob has strong knowledge of the complex world of commercial real estate. He also offers legal services in all aspects of commercial real estate. Guys, I've worked with Rob a lot. We're getting a deal under contract now, and I told the broker, I said, man, I really want to work with Prominent Title. Just trust those guys over there. They're great. They're quick. Love working with those guys. Now, back to the show.
Well, Mitch, I always like to ask my guests, with what you guys have done already, so impressed by what you and Kevin have done there at 1027. Really great stuff. We'll put your website in the show notes. People should go check out what you guys have done and what you're doing now. What would you say with your experience? What is the key ingredient for being a successful real estate investor? Maybe specifically, an apartment investor like you guys.
Yeah, I'd say, well, from a mindset perspective, and you kind of touched on it in the beginning, you got to be able to practice delayed gratification in real estate investing. It's a very patient game. And though it is very active, it's not kick your feet up and wait for your property to make money or your property appreciate. Though that does happen, it's very active, while at the same time, it takes a long time to build up a business. Now, you can be a passive real estate investor and kick your feet up, and you invest with operators like us, and you can kick your feet up, and it is passive. But if you're who we are and we're trying to build it, we're operators. We're trying to build a business. We're trying to grow our portfolio from 2 units back in 2020 to what it will be at the middle of this year, which is about 360 units. And then what we're trying to get it over the next, 1, 3, 5 years. That takes very active, but it's also delayed gratification. And I say that because and I don't know what your story is in terms of, when you started getting paid from your properties, but we really went a solid 1.5 years before paying ourselves anything. Everything got reinvested into the business. And we paid ourselves a little bit. Like, we still reinvest most everything into the business. Thankfully, our old W-2s paid well enough to where we got that going. We got that savings built up. But there's that phase of when you get into this as an entrepreneur where you got to be prepared to not get paid. It's not like you're going to get your first deal and then here's your $100,000 check. It's like, no, we don't take our acquisition fees. We reinvest them into the deals. And then, everything else that gets pulled out throughout the life of the deal, asset management fees, our own investment, our own LP returns, because we're LPs in our deals too. That all gets reinvested into 1027 Group, so we can go put a down payment on another property, or renovate some other personal stuff.
Life of an entrepreneur. Yeah, no, absolutely, man.
Very important piece.
Yeah, if you can't handle the delayed gratification, don't be an entrepreneur. Just get a W-2.
Exactly.
So you can start getting paid right away. Yeah,
exactly.
That's a good word. Well, Mitch, I know you're a Christ follower like me. I know you're married, committed to your bride, but you're also an entrepreneur like me. So it gets very busy, and you're also extremely passionate about real estate investing like I am. So I can connect with you here. It's difficult keeping your priorities straight. Keeping the main thing. Following the Lord first, serving your wife second, and then real estate should really be far below those two for sure. How are you doing that? What's maybe a key ingredient or something you and your wife instituted to help you to make sure your schedule and your time and emotion and energy show that your priorities are what you say they are?
Yeah, that's a great question. Very top of mind all the time as an entrepreneur, and as one trying to balance first your relationship with God and then relationship in your marriage. I think what we found to be the most important daily practice is, before you do anything every day, wake up early. What we try to do, wake up while the sun isn't up yet, still dark out, no looking at the phones, and we just get right into the Word. We spend time with God. And though it's not an easy practice to build up into a habit, but now that we've been doing it for years, we see the effect of when we don't do it. You feel the effect, and that's what's great about it, and that's what's great about just walking with Christ, is it's a daily journey. Like, you have to make daily decisions every day to stay on that path, because you can always veer left. I mean, you can very quickly, veer left. One split decision, you can veer left. So every day before the sun comes up, before we look at our phones, the first things we want to put into our mind and our heart is whatever God has to tell us that day. So that's where we open our Bibles, we get into scripture, we do our devos, prayer as well. And that just sets us right for the day. It helps us prioritize. It's just the way the Holy Spirit works, man. He just helps us prioritize life. And we put him first, and we focus on him first, and we submit and surrender to him first. He will then help us figure out the rest. And so that's what we do. We do that together every day. And there are days you miss, but like I said, you know it when you miss it. The clarity, the vision. Every day we need to hold on to the vision of why we're doing what we're doing, why we're in marriage, and why, I'm in this entrepreneurial journey. You forget that on even a daily basis. Like, it impacts your meetings. It impacts stuff like this. It impacts when you're talking to investors. You need to hold on to the vision that we believe God gave us for why we're doing what we're doing. And the only way to do that is to continue to spend time with God and to continue to hear from him. So that's number one for us. And there's a whole host of things that we try to do to, stay in tune with our marriage and not let our marriage start, not let us start separating from each other in marriage, like in terms of connection and intimacy. There's a lot of things we do to keep that healthy. But it all starts with just, how's your relationship with God? Have you spent time with him today? So.
Yeah, I always just think you're constantly, I mean, it's just the way humans are. We're constantly feeding ourselves with something. Like you mentioned, putting the phone down, not turning the screens on. Like, most people are doing that. So you're going to put something into you. So, people that, aren't into it might say, man, this sounds like a lot. Well, you're doing it too. You're doing it with something. You're waking up in the morning and you're feeding yourself something, some kind of information, some kind of ideas into your mind. And so you're just being intentional about what that is. And you're starting that way. And I love how you say, that's how the Holy Spirit acts, is going to start working in you because you're tuning into that. And now your focus for the day is going to be different. And it makes a world of difference. That's you and I believe that's what we were created to do. We have a creator. He created us in a certain way. And you're, tuning into that every day, in the morning. That's great, man. Love that. You mentioned there's some other things. Maybe what's one other thing that just specifically you and your wife do to maintain your relationship?
Yeah, I think one thing we do, and this is also daily, is you hit a certain time in the night. And don't get me wrong, there's some late nights that she needs to spend on her work and late nights that we need to spend on ours, as in, I need to spend on 1027 Group. But more often than not, we're reserving late in the day, whether that's 7, 8, 9 o'clock, to just hang out with each other. Like, if I'm sitting on the couch with my laptop and she's with me, that's not good. We don't want that. Like, I'm not going to be on my laptop doing work while even if it's just watching TV. Like, and that's a level of trust we need to have in God too, is we need to be able to put those things away. That's the whole point of the Sabbath, right? The whole point of the Sabbath is you reserved one day to just live and not worry about your work, not worry about where the money's coming from, because you trust in God and you believe that he's going to provide for you no matter what. And so we kind of try to practice our mini-sabbaths every night. Every night we'll have our dinner together and we'll just hang out. And sometimes I have to go back to my computer after all that and my laptop and do work at 10:30. She goes to bed and I'll do that because there's certain things that need to get done. But that's one thing that we reserve for each other and for God in the end, right? We reserve for each other and for God to just put everything else aside and just keep that, that connection with each other healthy and strong.
That's good. Yeah. I love that, man. I love it. Yeah, mini Sabbath. That's really good. And I agree. It comes down to trust. If you think, man, there's a lot going on right now, and the only way it's going to get done is if I sacrifice time with my wife tonight on this Tuesday and do it, that's one way to think about it. Another way to think about it is if God wants us to get done, it's going to get done. But what I know is my God wants me to serve my wife. And so we've committed to saving this time. And so I'm not going to get to that. And God's going to make it happen, or he's not. But you're trusting that God's plan is going to be revealed and going to happen. But he wants you to serve your wife. So really good stuff, man.
That's the freedom. That's the freedom we're called to live in. Is God's going to make it happen, or he's not. And we, we open our hands.
It's not the prosperity gospel. It doesn't happen. It doesn't just happen. But we trust in His will, and we have freedom in that. Yeah, exactly right. Well, good stuff. Well, Mitch, along those lines, I always like to ask my guests before I let them go. What's something maybe my listeners and I can be praying for you, for 1027, for you and your wife? Just what could we kind of join you in prayer in the coming weeks?
Oh man, great question. I would just say, and it's going to sound general, but I think we're at a point in 1027 Group right now where we are growing. We're growing at a healthy pace, I think. And it just like I alluded to earlier, holding on to that vision that God gave us way back in the beginning. We have things that, that specific things about our vision that we want to get to, and that we want 1027 to be used for, for kingdom impact, specific projects in mind. Those things are in the works, and we're waiting for the right time. I think it's more of like, that's another delayed gratification part of it.
Right.
So I would just say, like, prayers for us to just hold on to that vision and not let that go, and not veer left and do business the way the world says to do business. We're going to stay right on the straight and narrow, no matter the resistance or the friction, and just be as obedient to God as we can. And and I think that if we hold on to our vision, that will happen. So I guess just the general prayer that we'll hold on to our vision.
Yeah. Oh man, I love it. Yeah. Be happy to pray for that for you guys, Mitch. Good stuff.
Awesome.
Well, cool, man. Well, hey, this has been really helpful. I appreciate you being open, honest, revealing about, at first it wasn't awesome. It wasn't rainbows and sunshine from the get, and that's how it goes a lot of times. But man, you guys pivoted quick, and having a much better result now, and we've got property, close to yours, and we, pretty intimate with what's going on, and see that you guys really doing well now. And I see that, that trend is going to continue. So, thanks for sharing all that. It's been really helpful. That's going to be helpful to people that are just getting in, because that's the real deal. That's how it goes. You want to take on value add projects. It's hairy in the beginning. It's tough. It's going to take some time to get on, and you guys have done it, relatively quickly. So, thanks so much for joining us today, Mitch.
Yeah, thanks, Lee. Appreciate it. And by the way, what you're doing is amazing. God's clearly using Threefold, and so more power to you.
Yeah, thank you. And I said earlier I was going to mention, Mitch. So Mitch and his brother Kevin and I host a monthly meetup in Cincinnati. So be remiss if I didn't say that. We meet the second Wednesday of every month. We're meeting in June. I think the second Wednesday is the 13th, I believe, Mitch. So we meet at
13th, 14th, something like that.
Yeah, somewhere in there. Check your calendar. Second Wednesday in June, we meet at Field Collective in the Rookwood area of Cincinnati. Just have great speakers. It's a really great meetup. We're not going to meet in July, probably not August, but we'll be back in the fall. So, if you're in the area, come join us. It's great.
Yeah, and I think just add on to that, the one thing I love about real estate and what we do is it's extremely people-oriented. You need to be in the right rooms with the right people in order to grow and to be successful. And that was the entire intent with why we put this together, was to create the community and to create a room where partnerships can happen, and you can find the right lenders, the right lawyers, the right property managers. So that's what this is intended to be, and it's been great so far.
Well, I think, Mitch, the reason I was, really interested once I got to know you and Kevin partnering with you guys, and it was your guys' idea that you brought to me, is you guys have the abundance mentality. And, Christians should have that mentality, in my opinion, and a lot of non-Christians have it as well. But it's what you just said there, Mitch. Like, we want to all be in the same room, because it's not a dog-eat-dog world, in our opinion. We're not, it's not a zero-sum game. We're like, well, shoot, why would I bring in other investors? Like, why would I share my secrets? Why would I maybe let them meet the brokers that come to the meetup? And, I'm supposed to be competing with them, and we don't see it that way. It's a great big pie. We can split it up. We can share it. There's enough. We can do more deals together than we can do by ourselves. And so I love that you guys have that mindset. And I think everybody that's joined, clearly has that mindset as well, or they wouldn't have come. And so it's really already turned into a great community of people that are saying, hey, let's go do this together. There's enough deals out there for all of us, and maybe you'll take one and I'll take one. Maybe we'll do one together, but we need each other, and we'll do more together. So it's why it's really turned into a great meetup. So, good stuff. All right, Mitch, well, I'll let you go, man. I'll be here long enough. Good luck, and keep up the great work.
Thanks, Lee. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you for joining us for another great episode. I hope you'll take action on what you've learned today. If you enjoyed today's show, please consider leaving Lee a 5-star rating and review. And check him out on threefoldrei.com. Until next time, 1 Timothy 6:17.